Hey, 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 it's Rebecca, and you are listening to Resilient by Design. Today I'm interviewing Sarah Grant from Be.neat Studio. Sarah has been featured in magazines such as Maclean's, Boulevard, and she has a really unique business model. I first met Sarah when in Toronto here, she was working as a home organizer, and she helped me organize my basement with my kids' toys, organize my kitchen. You may have seen me post a little bit about that on Instagram, and she was just such a great, savvy businesswoman. Anyhow, pandemic happened and went, and Sarah and her family made the big decision to just pick up and move across country. And she moved to Kelowna, BC, beautiful Kelowna, and has started fresh. And now, having recently taken Power of Process, our signature course all about establishing systems and really honing in on what your business is, she has expanded her organizing studio to offer decorating services. I'm really excited to talk to Sarah today because she not only changed cities, she had to pick up an entire business where she had all the contacts and move to a new city, and she is thriving. I love the nuggets that she shares today. I think will help you if you're considering making a big change, a big move, and are scared and a little bit unsure. I think this episode is for you. I hope you enjoy it. All right. I'm Rebecca Hay, and I've built a successful interior design business by trial and error, podcasts, online courses, and so many freaking books. Over the last decade, I've grown from an insecure student to having false starts to careers, and now I'm finally in the place where I want to be. Throughout my journey, it's been pretty obvious that I'm passionate about business and helping other entrepreneurs do the same. Each week, I'll share tangible takeaways from my own experience and the experiences of other badass women to help you build your confidence and change your business. Welcome to the podcast, Sarah. I'm excited to have you. It's funny. I feel like you've been on the podcast before. And the only reason I feel that way is because I feel like I know you so well from all of our working together and you helping me with the organization of my home and then you going through Power of Process. And I feel like I know you so well that I'm like, oh, she's obviously been on the podcast. And then I realized you had not been on the podcast yet.
I'm excited to be.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I would love for you to just start by sharing with everyone who you are.
Yeah, so my name is Sarah. I run a business called Be.neat Studio, and I started it nearly 4 years ago with a focus on home organization. And I've always been interested in decorating and design, but I really, as a new parent, found organization was critical in terms of the functioning of a home. And so I have use the organization to rekindle my interest in design. And I've recently finished a decorating certificate program and have also gotten into move management. So I've recently finished Rebecca's Power of Process, and I'm bringing together my organizing, move management, and home decor to really specialize in services for the real estate market and helping people navigate major life transitions.
So basically, you're doing all the things. I love it. Full service over here. I love it. So I'd love to maybe just start off by talking about how we first got to know each other. I feel like you popped up into maybe our Facebook group. You were in our Facebook group for a while.
Yeah, your designer meetup group.
A designer meetup. Yeah.
I came to one of those before the pandemic stopped in-person meetings and had a lovely time at one of your events. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we decided to partner together and you helped me organize parts of my home when I did my home renovation.
Yes, I was actually listening to your podcast when you mentioned your basement.
That's so funny.
In just a state of, it didn't live up to the rest of your house, you were saying, and you were embarrassed about it. And I thought I could help with that. So
yeah, and so you reached out to me, cold email, reached out to me, and you were like, "Oh, I'd love to partner with you." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I could totally use the help." And it was pandemic, remember? We all had masks, and there was one point we were like, "Ooh, it's kind of a stay-at-home order. I don't know if you should come." When you think back on it, it's so crazy, right?
Yes. But I was just there doing my thing, like pretty much independent in your basement. And
Totally. I'm like, you stay in the basement.
yeah.
I won't come near you. We won't cross-contaminate. You were so helpful. You helped us purge like all the toys and organize things. And it was just the stuff that I knew I needed to do, but didn't want to do.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of the work that I started off doing was in basements. It's like, a lot of people have different thresholds of what they spend the time and prioritize doing themselves. And basements are always last, especially for busy parents, but
Totally.
nice
And
for the
then
family to enjoy that extra space.
and then after that, I remember we hired you for a client, some of our client work. We're like, okay, we need you to organize our clients' homes. And then you helped me with my kitchen. And then you were like, I'll let you tell the story. But then because there's some noise happening in the background here. Sorry, guys. I'm still trying to sort out my podcasting location. I'm in the middle of my house right now. And then you were like, I'm moving. Did you move before you took power process or
yeah,
it was
I
the
moved
reverse?
first.
I can't remember.
Actually, and it's such funny timing. I realized it was a year ago. I was organizing your bathroom because I have the pictures from it. Like exactly a year ago this week. And and I was like, okay, we just decided to move. And it was very sudden. We shocked everyone with our decision to move.
So I would love to talk about that because I think it's so interesting, especially with the pandemic. There's been so many people that either I know personally, like yourself, like Jamie Sparling, or people that I've just sort of seen on Instagram that have up and moved their families to entirely new cities, provinces, countries. And so I'm so fascinated by this idea of massive change. So I would love to hear a little bit more about that. I'm sure listeners are super curious because you moved from Toronto, Canada, all the way out to the west side of the country to Kelowna, BC, which is like a very, like they're far, like that's a plane ride. That's not just hop in the car. I mean, you can drive.
Thankfully, a direct plane ride. So it doesn't feel as far. But yes, when we made the decision to leave Ontario, that was a big one for us.
Talk about that decision because you had a business here, you had children, like young children in school here. Like what led to that decision? Like, and what helped you make the final call to say, yep, that's it. We're moving across country.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about because on the one hand, we decided and bought a house in a week, sight unseen, which was super quick. But on the other hand, like think back to one of the first dates that my husband and I went on, and he said, I never want to settle down in Toronto. And I said, I never want to settle down in the suburbs. We still somehow ended up together, but there's always been this thought that maybe there was a place out there for us and our family. And that was just sort of on the back burner because we both had jobs in Toronto. And so I think, the big turning point was the start of the pandemic. And we spent a summer at his parents' place, which is on the lake in Halliburton. And coming back from that trip, he just really had the itch to get out of the city and was starting to see that a lot of his friends who also appreciated being outside of the city could take that opportunity to move with remote work. So it was really driven by my husband's interest in leaving the city. Because I knew how important it was to him, I just said, okay, I'm going to be selective about where I move to, but I will entertain this idea with you. And so it was a 1.5 year process of thinking about what that could look like for us and what would be a good fit for our family. So coming back from the cottage that summer, we toured Huntsville because he had that in mind. And we thought about getting a second property and renting our Toronto house out, but we ruled that out. And then as well, over the course of the pandemic, I supported a lot of families who were making that move, one to the US, one to Muskoka, and another one to PEI. And so I started building these relationships and supporting people through that move process with decluttering and packing, planning new spaces, designing new spaces remotely so that they could source the things they needed to go. And that sort of planted the seed for being prepared to make that decision and know that we could physically make that move quickly.
It's like you had it's almost like you had a front row seat to all these other people making this major relocation. that then it almost like demystifies it in a way. It's like, oh, like you're part of the logistics for them. So I would imagine it made that choice and that move a little bit easier because you were already privy to everything that entails.
Yeah, it's true. I did get a really intimate look into several families' moves. Yeah,
so
and some of them left Toronto sort of the way we went to Haliburton for the summer and then just decided not to come back. And they just loved it so much. And so I was their person on the ground in the city while they were still out there enjoying their new home.
Oh my gosh. So you make this decision. I remember you sent an email and you were like, I'm leaving Toronto. I will refer you to someone else who can help you and your clients with your organizing needs. And like, you sent me a beautiful little card. It was so lovely, a little gift. The card and like a little, was very, actually, I have to say, I'll comment on this as someone who's maybe like transitioning to a new city, or if you are maybe changing careers, but I thought it was really thoughtful and a great loyalty technique, actually, which I don't think was your intention, but to put in a business card of somebody else who does what you do as a referral, it made me think like, wow, that is so thoughtful. She could have just said, peace out, Toronto. See you never. But instead, you were really thoughtful and you gave me another person who you had vetted, who you knew, who did similar work, who I quite frankly have not called yet because I haven't needed it. But I just remember thinking, wow, like I will sing your praises to anyone I know in Kelowna because that was such a thoughtful touch. So I just think that was like, no, really. And for anyone who's listening, who's like moves to a new city, like what a great way to like keep those strong relationships by showing your clients that like, I'm not here, but I've got your back.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, that was a case where I was referring someone who had worked alongside me for the past year in Toronto on a lot of those move jobs that I help people with. And she's an amazing professional organizer and packer and move manager. And yeah, when we decided to move, I definitely thought about how I could maintain my Toronto business because I genuinely feel like everyone that I've worked with has become a friend. I did have a few projects that had come to a good conclusion point, but would have parts that would continue past that. And her name is also Sarah. She approached me interested in how we could partner moving forward. And I asked her about maybe continuing, with Be.neat Studio in Toronto, but she was at that point in her career where she wanted to build her own group. So, her own brand. So she's got a move management company, Flitta. It's Swedish for to move, I think. No, I'm drawing a blank. But yeah, so we got little Swedish candies from another local entrepreneur's business, my friend Jen Knox. And it just felt like a great thing to do to thank people who I had worked with and then also support other local businesses.
And then you got a big feature. What magazine? You were in a big magazine. This whole story about how you and your family had moved across country. Remind me where it was.
Oh, yeah. It was in Maclean's magazine.
In Maclean's magazine. How did you go about getting that article? I felt like it was such a great strategic move, I will say. I don't know if it was on your part, but to you've announced to this, to the world, I've arrived in Kelowna, I'm here ready to serve you. I thought it was such excellent PR.
Thank you. I have to admit, I have a little bit of mixed feelings about it. I was approached about it and I had the conversation with my husband, should we do this? I used to work in media, so it came through a personal contact. And having been the type of people that always sort of fantasized about a possible move, my husband and I loved those kinds of stories and found them inspiring reference points, what resonates with us, what doesn't resonate with us. And so we shared a lot of personal information and invited a photographer into our home right after the move. And I was like, I can do this because it's connected to my business. And my husband also said the same thing. If this supports your business, I'll do it. But he wouldn't otherwise have wanted to open up to that many people. And yeah, for me, it was very much a hopeful message because throughout my whole life, I've experienced periods of being frustrated with real estate, whether it was, a studio apartment that I was hunting for, or even roommates. I found every time I looked to move, it started off really frustrating and almost depressing. What can you get for this budget versus what your expectations are? And, at the time we were looking in the beaches as well, and we could get an extra half bedroom for the same budget that we were looking for in Kelowna. And that was mind blowing to me. But the reason why I say I have mixed feelings is because just the timing of it, the timing of it with everything going on in the world and the way the real estate market shifted right after we left, I think it didn't resonate across the country, I think, with everybody.
Well, I think it was great. I think it was an excellent way to at least show Kelowna, like, here I am, ready to tackle and all your organizing projects. So I thought it was great. I mean, they say no PR is bad PR, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think as an entrepreneur, it's one thing to get a space featured in a magazine, but you also have to get a sense of what you're comfortable with exposing in the media versus what you want to keep private. And so you make yourself vulnerable by putting yourself out there. And I think with each one that you do, you learn a little. It was mainly positive feedback, and it was a cool feature.
I thought it was cool. I'm like, I know that girl.
I actually met someone here who I became friends with locally, and she had just moved from Toronto too. And then once she was over, and once she met my family, she's like, oh, wait, were you the person in that article? Because after I moved, someone sent it to me, and she said, I really resonated with your story. So that was cool.
And that's amazing. There you go. Okay. So, and then not only did you move across the country, you changed your business model, because when you were in Toronto, it was strictly, I mean, I think you already just said this, but it was like personal organization, like home organization and move management. Mm-hmm. You weren't really doing decorating and design, were you?
No, well, it's been within the last year. It just sort of started with sourcing organizing products for people, right? So sometimes it would be like a art cart for the corner of the room. So looking at how you could give some structure to things that were taking up space that didn't have the structure. So I think I've always brought an eye for design to all of the organizing projects that I've done. But it was more recently that I got into actually decorating or furnishing spaces.
I love it, because I think it shows others that you don't have to, just because your business is known for one thing, doesn't mean you have to only do that one thing forever. Like, you don't have to pigeonhole yourself just to do the one thing. You can expand, you can contract, you can change your offerings based on demand and based on what you want. And I think it's really great. It's cool to see you in this like new life with expanding business, and you took Power of Process. So did you know that you always wanted to take that course? Because when you and I were working together, I don't know, like, you didn't take the course until after we'd finished working together and you moved.
Yeah.
So talk about that. Like, what was behind the decision to take Power of Process?
Yeah, it was definitely a matter of the right timing. So one opportunity that came up as soon as I made my move was the realtor who we used here in Kelowna to buy our house had some other clients looking for organizing a new home setup, and she referred me for that job. And I was upfront with them that this was on a scope and like a scale bigger than anything that I had taken on before, but it was a good fit personality wise and style wise, and a great referral, which I was grateful for. So I took that job on just as I was finishing up these decorating courses that I was taking, the George Brown certificate program. And then I loved the idea of doing Power of Process at the same time, because I just thought, for two reasons, giving me that exposure to what other professional designers and decorators were doing in that support network. And also just ensuring that I had all the processes in place to make sure that that first really big job that I was taking on delivered exceptional client service. And I really had the confidence throughout the whole program that not only were the process we were working on relevant, but also just that camaraderie and the network and support from the group extremely valuable, so that I could immediately apply it to the project that I had just taken on.
So how would you say that how would you say that your business has changed as a result of Power Process? Like, is there anything that you learned throughout the course that shifted how you do business?
So, well, I immediately took the processes and used a lot of the language, like from the beginning of your course, when you talk about who your ideal client is and how you can best serve them and what your point of differentiation is to do that. Working with other designers and decorators really helped me solidify my own offering and then incorporate that into the value I was bringing to my project. And then on the heels of it as well, I've used it to just streamline my own marketing messages. So refresh how I'm talking about my business and reiterate the processes that I bring to give other people confidence that I can take on those larger projects as well. Because that's what I'd really like to do next, is secure more of those larger projects.
Oh my gosh. This is so interesting. Like, you are literally the third designer that I've spoken to for the podcast that has taken Power Process, that the result that they told me and that you've just said that was like, maybe it was unexpected. It was unexpected to me to hear it, but was the marketing piece, which is so funny because like Power Process is not a marketing course, but like literally every single person said, including you, that it helped them with their website. It's helped them establish their marketing. And it's so interesting. It's like that. It's like a byproduct. It's almost like, and I mean, I know this, but it's interesting to hear it come organically out of these alumni's mouths, including yours. That like, okay, having that process, it helps you internally with your company, but it also assists you to elevate your marketing. Which
totally. And my background is marketing. Like, that was my career before decorating. So it's not even that I don't know the marketing principles. It's that being in that environment gives you the language to talk about it and ensures that it's that sense of alignment around client service, which I think a lot of people hear marketing and they think advertising or, website design, that it's not about that. It's really about aligning your strengths with the people that you want to serve and communicating that to them so that people know how you can help them. So it's client service and being able to communicate it. And yeah, the course gave me the language for that and understanding the nuances. There can be so many designers, but each of our strengths are totally different. The types of projects we want to take on are totally different. And so really understanding who you can deliver that value to and how you're going to deliver the value to them.
Yeah, I always think it's so interesting. Like, I don't know, of the hundreds of people now who have gone through the course over the last few years, literally not one designer is in competition with the other. Like, it is so fascinating to see how everyone talks about their service and how it's slightly different, or they're passionate about one thing, or someone's passionate about another, or they're in a different city, or they service a different type of client, or they're super niche. Like, it is really interesting because I think to the outside world, it seems like, oh, well, aren't you all in competition with each other? Like, right. Don't share your resources. Like, why would you want to be in community with other designers? Don't you want to be with other entrepreneurs? But actually, there's so much, like you said, the language that is shared, the similar situations that we encounter, the similar challenges that we face inside that community. You can share your experiences and help each other, even though your companies could be very different and your passions are very different. Like, you are attracting very different clients. And I'm always amazed by that, actually, even though I believe it and I talk about it, but right. I am still always amazed. And like, for example, like your business, you offer all these elements that most interior designers that I know don't offer, right? Like the home organization, that move management, like that is a whole, that's an element that truly differentiates you. And I think it's so interesting to see how we really are not. It's like proof is in the pudding that we are not each other's competition. Like there is somebody out there for all of us.
Totally.
Yeah. It's so
and
cool
going back to, my decision to join Powerhouse Process too, it really is a testament to you and your character, because I find it's so easy in any industry to get caught up in a sense of competition. And I find even the way other people that aren't in business talk to me about my business and competing, I'm like, no, competing is not even a word in my vocabulary. And I think it's easy for people to think about designers as being competitive, but you've created, and this is what I experienced through designer meetups too, just such an open, collaborative community. And I think that translates into the mindset and the value that everybody can go off and bring to their own unique projects with confidence.
Awesome. That makes me feel so good. I mean, that is the goal ultimately, is to create a collaborative community where we can share and support each other and grow and learn from each other. And I love that was your takeaway. How would you say that community aspect has helped you? Are there any, like, I remember seeing you, I think you were sharing documents inside the Facebook group. I don't remember what they were. Like, here's what I've come up with. Like, this is my process.
It was the process.
Yeah, I don't know.
Which is now on my website.
Is it
another website example?
Run over to her website. What's your website?
Oh, it's Be.neat Studio.com. Studio.
Okay, everyone, run over to her website so you can see what we're talking about. But was there any one aspect of that community that you found really beneficial?
The ongoing communication and feedback with everyone was valuable. And even just because we were talking a lot about process, we were able to ask each other questions. A lot of discussion around execution, to be honest. Anyone can plan a space, but thinking through the logistics and the execution seemed to be a big topic of discussion. And so just knowing that when you come across any sort of challenge or block, there's a whole group of people out there that are happy to help is such a huge asset.
My son is asking for a pencil. One second. Wait, why don't you just go get yourself a pencil, buddy? You had one this morning. What'd you do with it? Is it in your room? Sorry about that.
No problem. Sharpening pencils this morning.
Yeah. So I think that's really great. Like that you have that sounding board, right? To say, yeah, you're right. The execution is everything. So it's one thing to have this in theory, but then when you put it out into the real world, how do clients respond to it? Here's this situation. How do you handle that situation? I think I always say that people come to Power of Process for the course and they want a process, and they want to eliminate the overwhelm, and they want a sort of step-by-step system to follow, but they leave actually seeing the benefits of the community even more. It's like you come for the course and you leave with community.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
definitely.
so cool.
And then I think because there are so many conversations around processes too, even when other people ask questions or bring up topics, it just helps you anticipate the specific issues you may come across as well and feel more prepared for them in advance.
Yeah, it makes you understand that, like, okay, like nothing's going to be perfect. These situations are going to arise, so that when it does happen to you, you're like, oh yeah, remember this happened to so-and-so. And that's how they handled it. Like, okay, as opposed to feeling blindsided when something goes wrong in your business and you feel like it mustn't happen to anyone else because everyone else's Instagram feed is perfect. And no one talks about the missing tile or that they didn't order enough or who knows what could go wrong. I could think of a million things off the top of my head. You don't feel like, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong? What's wrong with me? I don't know what I'm doing. All those negative thoughts because oh yeah, other people were talking about this. This happens all the time. This is normal. I'm normal.
Yeah. It's huge with the mindset piece too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's look forward for you. Because I would love to hear, like, what is your business like today? What type of projects are you working on? What's in the horizon? I feel like you mentioned when we were offline, I would love to hear more about this idea that you are venturing into another new territory. So tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah.
Like, what's happening with you right now?
So right now I'm in a good place with the big project that I took on. And so that's gone down to fewer hours each month. And so I'm, as I mentioned, working on my local marketing because I still feel like a big part of my network and that referral funnel that I built up is in Ontario. So I'm using this time to look at Airbnb and short-term property rentals, which are really big in Kelowna. And I don't think I would have considered had I not been here. But our family is going to go back to Ontario for a few weeks in the summer. And so we thought that that was a good time to set our home up here to rent out while we're away. And it's given me new inspiration and a new lens to look at my home and think, what more can I do to fine tune the setup and the style and the ease of use for guests?
That's really cool. So you're venturing into Airbnb host territory.
Yeah.
Have you posted it on Airbnb yet?
So I keep saying Airbnb because I feel like that's a verb now, but I've gotten my first post on VRBO. So it's not live yet, but I've gotten some initial pictures and descriptions up. I was just doing that last night.
That is so fun. That was what we were going to do in the country when we were building our farmhouse that hasn't been built yet.
Okay, I didn't know
was
that.
To build like a purpose-built Airbnb, but then the costs to build were just so astronomical that we put the whole thing went on hold. But I can totally relate to that excitement of like, because like how you outfit your home for you is not the same as outfitting a home for a rental, right?
Yeah.
There are certain things that renters expect, or that also don't maybe even need, right? Like renters don't need big, deep, vast closets if they're only there for a few days, but they do need shelves. They do need places to put things.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to see like where you take that. Like there's probably opportunity to help other people who have short-term rentals get their homes designed and decorated. Is that something that you've considered?
It is, but I think, again, figuring out my niche in this market. There's an amazing company here who I've been following on Instagram. She's called How to Host, and she runs a property management and design business here. And so I think she's doing an amazing job, and it's such a great inspiration. And so again, just figuring out what that opportunity for me might be, but certainly the decluttering aspect and prepping and structuring a place, I think I can help with, and helping people make some of those smaller tweaks that will allow them to optimize it for their own living and then be able to take a holiday and rent their place out while they're on holiday and earn some extra income.
Yeah, I would imagine for those who don't know, Kelowna is a pretty beautiful spot. There's a lake, there's vineyards, there's orchards. Like it's a very lush, wonderful place. Jillian Harris lives there. I'm trying to think, how would people know Kelowna?
Fame. Yeah, Jillian Harris and Big White. Big White's an hour away. So those are
Big White, the ski resort, right?
Yeah.
So that's one place. It's a total sidebar, but that is one place that I think will be like our first family ski trip. We've heard incredible things about it for families. Like apparently it's set up so well. I don't know. Have you skied there?
Yeah, I wasn't a skier before, but I'm totally hooked now. I've been taking lessons. So yeah, I started in November, took a bunch of lessons, and then strangely this month we haven't been able to get up at all. But and I was the one in the family that was the most hesitant about downhill skiing, and now I'm the one eager to go back.
Amazing. I love that you were taking lessons in November. For those who do not know, in Ontario in November, there is no snow. There is no skiing where I live, but there's snow on the mountains in Kelowna.
Oh, I happened to be in Ontario, what was it, end of October, beginning of November, and it was like 20 degrees, and I was out enjoying the Saturday night in Toronto. And then, here, my husband was working, had the kids in school, and they were just shoveling like several feet of snow that has just come down. So Big White opened a week early this year because of the extra snowfall that was not typical.
We have lots of snow right now, but it's going down to like minus 26. So it's going to be really cold. I don't skiing when it's really cold.
It's really cold. Yeah. Yeah. And Big White, it gets its name because it can be foggy too. So we've had a few days, like last weekend, I think it was, we planned to go, but someone that I spoke to was like, you couldn't even see your hand. It was so foggy. So
yeah, that doesn't
definitely gunning for more clear days.
Totally. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So in a minute, I'm going to ask you for your nugget of wisdom so we can share with everyone. But before that, is there anything else that you wanted to share that we haven't had a chance to sort of dive into that we kind of maybe missed talking about?
I don't think anything is jumping out off the top of my head.
I have to say, one thing that I wanted to share on the podcast, which is what sparked me to invite you onto the podcast, is I loved how you were conducting your client. I don't know what wasn't a survey, but like you sent me a Google review request.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of designers are afraid to do that because, I don't know, you're afraid of a bad review or you feel like you're asking too much of a client. Walk me through that process. Like, how do you go about doing it? Does it make you nervous to send it to people? Or are you just like, I need to do this because it's going to help my website and it's going to help people see who I am?
Maybe yeah. Well, I remember process. I specifically sent it to you after you made a post about just ask.
Yeah. If you want. You're like, all right, I'm going to ask you. Thanks.
Okay, I will take you up on that. So yeah, I admit I do often go by like the relationship and the experience, and so often people say that like if there's anything I can do to help or like, thank you so much, this is the impact that it's had, then I follow up and just say, I really hope you're still enjoying it. And if you have feedback, like I always welcome that feedback. And if you are still happy and you'd love to reiterate publicly that your kids are still like loving this basement space and they clean up after themselves, just remind them of something that they've said already and how valuable that is for me as a small business owner. And I think a lot of people really want to help small business owners. And then just one technical thing is if you go into your Google business page, you can get the link of where to write a review. So it's actually pretty simple for people if you just give them that link and reiterate that they need to be logged into their Google account. So I do want to respect people's time, and normally people hire me because they are so busy, and so it's definitely something I appreciate a lot when people take the time to do. So I let them know that and try and make it as quick and easy as possible.
Yeah, and I think you did, and I think it was a really great lesson for how you can close out a project. For designers who are listening. And the projects, sometimes they feel like they drag on, they feel like they dwindle. There never seems like the perfect time to send a request for a Google review or for them to fill out a survey. But I love how you said that you just reiterate something that they've said. So they've said something to you at some point to show that they were happy, because you don't send a Google review link to someone who's not happy. Let me just put that out there. Okay. We do not need that on the internet. We do not need that you were pissed off because the contractor, whatever, and you give us 2 stars. No, thank you. Don't leave a review. You're only going to ask for reviews from the people that truly enjoyed working with you, because you want to attract more people like that. And you're going to get the best 5-star rating. But I love that you kind of feed that as in like, I'd love, feel free to share about like this, and that worked out so well on the project, or how your children were so happy. I've heard of people actually sending like bite-sized scripts that could be copied and pasted to make it even easier, because to your point, these are often very busy professionals. They're maybe not living and breathing it anymore. So it takes time. And I'll also add, it's okay to follow up with those people. Like, just because they didn't fill out the Google review, it probably just means that they got busy and they forgot. And I've done that where I followed up with a client. She was like, oh my goodness, I'm so, so sorry. I had every intention of doing it. I got distracted. I will do it right now. Like in my experience, most good people are excited to support you when they've had a good experience with you and they just want to share the love back. So let this be that push or that reminder to any designers who are listening right now to go out there and get those Google reviews, get those surveys from your clients so that you can spread the word that you are a great business person, because great people want to work with great people. So I loved that you did that. I think I even sent it to Vera. I was like, look what Sarah's doing. It's so good. She's so professional.
Well, yeah. And I think it's an important reminder that those things don't just happen because you leave someone gushing with a great experience. Hopefully you do leave someone with that feeling, but unless they're a small business owner themselves, they probably don't think about how impactful that would be. But if you give them that reminder and that link and that little nugget to kick off, making it easy for them, then that is how most of them happen.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like to also phrase it as like, for small business owners like myself, it's really powerful to have, a Google review, whereas someone who works corporate probably doesn't think twice about it. Yeah. So it is useful to frame it that way. Okay. Let's talk about the nugget.
Okay.
What would you share as a last nugget of wisdom to those who've listened? Maybe it's something that we kind of touched on, or maybe it's something completely unrelated. What do you think our listeners need to hear today?
I guess I'll share something that's been reiterated for me as a working parent and as a business owner and as a designer. And I feel like this came up in your group, but it's just the importance of not trying to do everything yourself and to recognize your strengths and bring the right people on board to support you in areas where you can get help. And that's where all the growth happens. And I saw it in my career before. And as soon as you can have other people supporting you and taking some of the load off, it frees you up to do bigger, more important things. And I think also through the power of process, it was reiterated for a lot of the designers and decorators, this may be their second or third career, whether they're transitioning from a firm and a big team to running their own business or making a career change. And if you want to step into that role of a business owner and have the biggest impact, then the more you can bring on experts with specific skills to support you, then the greater value you can deliver to your clients. And so don't be afraid to ask for help.
I love that advice. That's such good advice. It is true. We tend to think we can do it all because we probably can do it all. But just because you can do it all doesn't mean you should do it all. Ask for help, because that is when you will free yourself up to focus on the things that move the needle, those revenue generating activities, those CEO activities. Because if you don't take that time to bring some help on, then you're just going to burn out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. And I find whenever I share these things, it's because I need to remind myself as much as I remind other people. But it is often other people telling me, you need other people to help you with this. And I'm like, okay. So
totally. I think I read somewhere, where did I read? It was just recently, like yesterday. It was like most coaches will preach and talk about the thing about a thing because it's something that they know that they need to. Like, it's like we talk about the lesson that we've either just learned or is very present in our mind. So like, just like to your point, people are saying to you, you need to hire help, get help. It's like, that this is a thing that whether you're doing it or you're about to do it, it is such sound advice because it's resonated with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. So have you hired anyone?
I made a point when I moved here to hire someone locally to help me with my unpacking. So that was the first step. And I mean, in Toronto, we were working in big teams. I often brought people on board to help get through the physical side of it. And then hiring coaches, I agree. I really value hiring coaches. So that's not necessarily someone reporting into you, but someone that will hold you accountable and bring another perspective. and an accountant. I find like bookkeeping and accounting are common things that people like to outsource.
Are you outsourcing that?
Well, the accounting, I need a bookkeeper.
Yeah. I'm holding you accountable right now, Sarah. Did you hire a bookkeeper?
Yeah.
As
much as I love organizing, I don't like keeping track of invoices.
That's fair. Most of us don't. So that's fair. It's also pretty time consuming, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Sarah, it's been so nice to chat with you. I'm so excited to watch you in this like whole new phase of life and your new surroundings and like watching and supporting your business as it grows. And like you were such an active member of Power Process. I hope you'll join us again when the course comes back this spring. If you want to come through as an alumni, you always have access to the course, which is one of the awesome perks.
So valuable.
And so many people do come back, as I'm sure you saw, and they come. I remember, I don't know if it was recently, there was someone who was like asking a question in one of the chats or in one of the Zooms was like, why are people doing this again? And because there were so many alumni that came back, it's because you're constantly like, you're reiterating, you're fine tuning your process. You're looking for accountability. You're looking for community of people who are like-minded. Because when you're going through a course like that, everyone's on the same page. Everyone understands the terminology. Everyone has similar goals. And so it's really wonderful to be surrounded by that time and time again. So I hope you do come back and join us for part of it.
Yeah, I do see the value in that. So it's been on my radar to take you up on that opportunity for sure.
Yeah. Well, it'll be back around.
You know, there's so much detail you can go into with all the exercises, but so being able to go back through it with like a good baseline and then further refine is a great exercise.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for being on the podcast today. Can you let everyone know where they can find and follow you?
Oh, yeah. So I shared my website earlier, Be.neat Studio.com. And I'm also for Instagram at Be.neat Studio. And I love sharing everything home decor, design, moving, and now my Airbnb planning experience and short-term rentals.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you. It was great to connect with you.
Well, isn't Sarah just so lovely? I love following her big, bold moves and how she's starting to expand her business. Also, I just love the fact that she took, after several years of being in my realm, being in our Designer Meetup Facebook group, helping me with organization, she took the plunge, did Power of Process, and came out of it with so many realizations and so many tweaks for her own business. It's so neat to see her expanding into decorating. I know she's going to be successful, and I can't wait to watch this Airbnb. Is anyone else doing this? I'd be super curious. What a great way to travel and live somewhere for an extended period of time. I don't know though. I feel like I've got too much crap in my house. I feel like it only works if you're just moved in. You don't have a lot of things accumulated. Maybe that's where I would need to hire Sarah to declutter. Anyhow, if you guys are interested in joining Power of Process, you can go to RebeccaHay.com/power of process. There is very much power in this course. This course is not only about fine-tuning your business, understanding really how you serve your clients, having checklists, creating systems, and a repeatable process you can follow with every project to eliminate all that frickin' chaos. Start feeling organized, chaos, like coordinated in your mind to free up your time. In addition to all those things, it's a community. It's a community of like-minded designers, career-driven designers who support each other like to a level that I never anticipated. I think is one of our true differentiators. As a course creator, I don't know other course creators, at least in the interior design space, who also have such a strong, tight-knit community that is so welcoming, that is so helpful, especially when you're going through those hard times or shit hits the fan with a vendor or a client and you don't know what to do. These women, because let's face it, it's all women. We've had one man, and all women are there for each other. And you can be a part of that too. Anyhow, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode with Sarah, and I hope it inspired you to maybe take a leap of faith. I'll see you soon.